I just say greater than 1 meter, but they can go down to about, you see little sprigs of them, not much, but down to, say, 3 meters. Some of those are serralata, is like its name says, it's serrated, it has serrated edges. Now, if we look at, in terms of conservation, for 10 years, after I retired from the University of Guam, I worked for a private enterprise. I worked for an engineering company. I was the chief of environmental services. And this was between the 1990 to the year 2000. And this is when we had a lot of Japanese money in Guam. And they wanted to build everything, from piers on the area, in the area. Also, the government wanted to build more boat harbors, say in Saipan. Well, the biggest problem was the seagrass. No one cared if you buried the algae. Yeah, you would have to have the permits, the Corps of Engineer permits, but it wasn't a big deal. You could not touch the seagrass because these were jurisdictional wetland plants. And it says the executive order was no net loss. And this was under the Section 404 Clean Water Act and the River and Harbor Act. And this dealt with dredging and filling in these areas. So we try to avoid affecting any of these seagrass areas. So it's either avoidance, minimization, or you have to mitigate. It needs to be functionally equivalent. Well, it gets very difficult because when they say mitigate, you have to probably transplant, restore an area, or you transplant the seagrass, although the technique is well known. You can transplant these seagrasses. It just takes so much time, and it's so expensive. In this particular case, we had a project in Saipan where we had to, this was the government, wanted to build more boat ramps. And if you go to Saipan shore, you can't find a place without seagrass. And if there's no seagrass, so something's wrong with that place. Either the current is too fast, the seagrass can't grow. So in this one particular area, we tried to position the pier outline where there was absolutely no seagrass. And when we finally positioned the right place, we said, okay, no seagrass. I mean, there was a reason why there was no seagrass. The current was just too strong there. So we had to get rid of a small patch of Anhalis. And this is the one that you really have to dig deep. And one would really have to get a rubber-tired backhoe out there at low tide, make one big scoop, and put it into another area. But then the question is, where? You're not going to put it in an area where you don't have any seagrass, but there's a reason why there's no seagrass there. So we recommend that we simply plant these in areas where you had very little seagrass. And it became very difficult. I think that project just closed down. There's no boat harbor there, no pier. It's just too much trouble. And that was the problem, because in little Guam, we had to deal with the National Marine Fisheries in Honolulu. Thank God we had the Corps of Engineers located in Guam, and he was there for 10 years, so we all knew him. We could go to his house on the weekends to have him come out to look at certain areas. It was a friendly situation. He was very strict, but we could work. But in this particular case, I think there is no boat harbor in no new boat harbor in Saipan. Now, when we talk about mitigation, we have to talk about what is, you have to define what a success is. Now, most people are saying that it's successful if you can get the acreage planted to persist and it leads to replacement of function within the next 5 years. You know, 5 years is a long time. I mean, you don't know if you're going to be working with that company. And you have to monitor it, and they recommend that year 1, every 3 months, years 2 to 5, every 6 months. And the cost can be from $20,000 per acre to $200,000 per acre. It's very expensive. So it's best, forget it, don't touch the seagrass. So I think in one report they say there's only 2 records of successful transplants in the Mariana Islands. One is on Rota, and I heard after 5 years, it's still the same condition. It's not growing, it's not dying, it's just stationary. Another area is pretty much the same, because they were dealing with Enhalus. If we were dealing with something like Halophila, you can just scoop it up and simply plant it in another area, plant it among the other larger seagrass. And plus, Halophila is mostly annual. I mean, on Guam, these are annuals you find in certain areas, and you can go back 6 months later, they're gone. They're in another area.